I don't even have my laptop with me. They're fixing it at town hall. I'm trying my phone, so I hope you put up with me.
Yeah, well, that was my other option, but I do have Teams on this one and Zoom. I was just like, wait a minute, I don't normally get my mail through here. So let me redo this. Oops. So who are we? Just Megan. We're waiting on Megan.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Very small window. Maybe I need to make that bigger.
We're waiting for Patty.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yep.
I'll walk down the hallway and check and see if she's in her office.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she's gonna remote in from her office or at home, but I'll check.
Oh, gotcha.
If I remember right, she said she has an interview at 8:30, so she was going to call in from the parking lot of like KB&D or something like that.
Right. I think you're correct. So she's probably just trying to figure it out from the parking lot.
And
Yeah.
I got a notification this morning that she had forwarded the calendar invitation to her personal email, and I forwarded the link for her to be able to join to her personal as well. So probably just having some technical difficulties.
She's having my morning.
Well, it was her idea, I think, to do it at 8 o'clock. So
yes,
It might have been mine because my mom has PT this morning at 10,
yeah.
so I have to run.
Yeah, I mean, let us know because I know we have limited time, so maybe give another minute or two and we can
get started. She can
Yeah.
always hop in.
Yeah.
I give Megan authority.
all by yourself. Okay.
All by myself. Only one cup of coffee, and look at me, I'm power hungry.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, Kat, do you have time to talk before Tuesday?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I sent you a response back, but I'm going to be sitting in the waiting room this afternoon at the center for a while. We're there from, I think, 11 until almost 1:30 because she has her cast removal appointment. We go to PT. So I have plenty of afternoon time today twiddling my thumbs.
Great. I'll give you a call. We can talk
I
about
know what that is. My
Tuesday.
husband's having a Mohs procedure, and that just takes hours. They said, anywhere from 1.5 to 4 hours.
Well, I have to be there to fill out all her paperwork. I just giggle because like, well, come early. You have to fill out paperwork. I'm like, she broke her right hand. Can you not just let her dictate this to you over the phone and then we'll sign it when she gets there? So the service part is making me laugh a lot because since I do contracts and stuff for people, I'm like, no. You offer to do all this and then they sign. So simple.
Yep.
Do you think should we just get started? And I know Patty and I met when was that? I don't know, a couple of days ago to kind of talk through this a little bit. So she has been involved in the process. Should we just get started? Because I know we need to get out of here at 8:30 and
Sure.
Okay.
Let's roll with that and see where we land. And I think she'll probably jump in.
Yep. And then Eric, you had set out the document to everybody to kind of review. I'm happy to to summarize it, but basically, the idea is that we bring these bodies and entities together to really emphasize that this is an emergency. We talked about prioritizing the unsheltered component of the strategic plan and how that is the true emergency, particularly with all of the actions and the increase in camping that we have on public lands and the like. What immediate sort of triage steps can we take because the document kind of addresses this, like there are times when actually moving the camp or clearing the camp and moving it somewhere else is actually more detrimental than providing maybe some real basic supports. What might those look like? Is that a good idea? And then finally, what kind of appeals can we make to the the state or the governor to say, like, this is the unique, the unique characteristic
uniqueness
of
of
what
our
it looks
problem.
like. Yeah.
Megan, one of the things, and I don't know why we hadn't thought of this, and maybe we did and I wasn't listening. We don't have any public safety members on our board or meeting with us. And I really would love to have someone from the sheriff's office talking to us specifically about what they're seeing, what their problems are, so that, we're talking about dropping management basically around an existing camp. What type of pushback are we going to get when we drop in, help? And then we kind of, because I see it as constricting. So it's just a thought is when we start dropping in services, what are we looking at?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I would be fine with that. I also think that I was looking at that list. Hi, Patty. And I would definitely like to see ODOT be invited.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
Yeah, they just driving around yesterday, I thought, oh, that's, there is some in Bend, there are some, they're dealing with a lot in terms of that. And I think it would be helpful to have them at the table.
Isn't Nathan Garibay, isn't he with the sheriff's department?
Yes.
Okay, and he's on the list for.
Right, but I think regularly. I think when we're having our meetings, I would want input regularly as to, because they're out there with our service providers, but there's different interaction.
Mhm.
And so instead of hearing just one side of the story and then hearing the horror story over here from them, I feel like it might give them a little more empathy as to what we're doing instead of being out there feeling it's all helter skelter and nobody's organized.
Yeah.
And if I may interrupt for a second. So 3 things. Number 1, coordination among law enforcement and the board is actually in the HB 4123 requirement. And then Nathan Garibay is under the sheriff's department, but he is focused on emergency management.
Mhm.
And then Jason James under the sheriff is focused on outreach with regards to houselessness.
So we kind of probably need both of them initially, because I agree with Megan, this is an emergency. So we're going to have to treat it like an emergency.
Mhm.
But I want to treat it with as much compassion as we can. And I do know there will be people out there because of the things they are doing that have been off the radar, that our presence, even to be helpful, will be threatening. And I just want to make sure we have a full view of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Well,
And
what we can do is it sounds like the Crow Board would like to invite the sheriff's office to be at the table, and we could reach out to the sheriff and ask who he would like to designate.
Mhm.
Yeah, as long as the message is being correctly communicated. I've just gone through a series of miscommunications ourselves in Redmond, and I just want to make sure that the people who are talking with us are taking the message back and then relaying what their game plan is, so that we're all on the same page.
And Kat, you're kind of talking about it more in informal involvement, right? Not
Informal, not
yeah.
a seat at the board, because gosh knows we don't want to get large and have too much going on and no decisions can be made. But it's an advisory thing. But right now, in a state of emergency, I would want updates from the people in the field as often as we could get them.
Yeah. That makes sense. How do you all feel about the sort of the strategy for the roundtable in general and the process for it? Any concerns or?
I again, one of the things, I was just listening to a really great OPP piece on the fires in Colorado and their fire-wise management and how they lost those 1,000 homes out in Summit County. And I have an aunt who lives up where those fires were. So I think when we're talking about that forestry management, that's the other thing. I want to really have a very good idea, because we're going to get some pushback no matter what we do from other people about the health and safety of our people living in our more wooded areas, especially with the weather the way it is. We have people in our Redmond camps that actually have some fire starter tendencies. And so, I think that being able to identify what that is and having a way to deal with that with the Forest Service, with ODFW, with anybody, with our local fire department, because I think as we get people closer in and are providing services, it might create more action, Because I've
Mhm.
seen that in a couple places. As we're doing more to help, we seem to have gotten more activity on the other side, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is.
You know what would be, and I don't know if this is just a dream, but I think what would be so helpful would be a map of, of the county, right? And almost like a heat map of where our houses are concentrated. I mean,
That
I
would be
think it would be,
excellent.
I don't, Chris, tell me if that is just totally, but I mean, just to see the whole county and to see, like I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but just to kind of get an idea of that, is that,
Well, we could see the larger clusters of population and where we really need to be focused on at the county
Exactly.
level. I think that's not a bad idea. I'm not looking for an identified count. I'm looking for, we flew over and this is what we're seeing. Here's this huge group. Here's this tiny group. Because
yeah.
people talk about the RPZ and they're like, oh, you're sweeping all these people. I'm like, we're like down to 10 and
Yeah.
9 are moving and 1 is obstinate. I mean, so it's not 100 people. They've been getting noticed so often. They've all kind of just been relocating.
And
Yeah,
the
and I
other
wanna-
thing,
Oh, go ahead, Patty.
thank you, Chris. Yes, I'm actually getting an incident map, and because there are fires everywhere that are started in the homeless camps, etc. So I am getting it. Someone's putting an incident map, I believe, through the sheriff's office together for me. So I should have that shortly, because I think we really need to see what's happening. And I do believe with people inviting, we need to invite the legal from the U.S. Forest Service, Region 6. I think that's important. And Elizabeth Berger, we've got to get her over here from Portland. She's the new woman in charge of this region, and she needs to get over here and see what is actually going on.
Yeah, because she could have the governor's ear with a lot more authority than we would. And I agree with that. Having someone come in and go, oh my gosh, that would be an exceptional thing to have them go. And I think the incident map, having someone with outside authority saying this is a huge problem, quite possibly just sharing and reminding the governor's office of the damage of the fires in Summit County and how 1,000 urban homes basically were blown away in the matter of 45 minutes from 100-mile winds and a fire that started in a forest area.
Mhm.
So I think that that's something that they need to think about, because that does impact us.
But I think also, and I think this is something that as cities, we would all have to kind of, why are so many people living in our forests? Is it because because of the policies of the cities that they're moving into the forest? Is it because, and I think that's another thing to kind of get at too, is why this is happening.
It's truly
and,
the affordability factor of housing.
I mean,
when
yeah,
you
a lot of it
look
is. A lot of it is.
It's $2,300 to rent a 2-bedroom, 2-bath broom closet in Redmond.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's untenable.
Yeah.
My
But
mother
don't forget
could
the
not afford to
drugs.
live here.
Don't forget the drugs and the mental illness. The
There's
drugs
that
and the
too.
mental.
But
No, there's
I
a
will
lot of
tell
that.
you,
streets
we
of
need to
Bend
have
and
more housing that
are
they can
also-
afford, and we don't have any services. As far as if you look at the number of people providing service versus how many need it, it's non-existent. It's whack-a-mole for them. They can hardly keep up with their workload. And there's no place to put people who need to be in a facility or in a care center to get rid of their addiction and to have next steps. They're practicing catch and release at best.
Well, I'm hopefully going to see the governor tomorrow. I have my LGAC meeting in Salem, and I'm still promoting that Deer Ridge has the possibility, especially if someone like Alan Evans can go there. It really could model what he's doing at the Wapato jail. And so, we have a mess. And if you aren't aware of what they're also doing with the drug numbers, the medical examiner for the state is totally under fulfilled. They're missing 10 physicians for that job, and they are not keeping track of the overdose deaths in the state. So, there's a whole issue going on there. And hopefully tomorrow, several people will be at my LGAC meeting that are from OHA and from the governor's office.
Well, and again, I think that it's just having a behavioral health center or, a very long-term navigation center versus, you can get there for 24 hours. I have a suicidal veteran that I deal with almost daily, and he's been in and out of the navigation center. And the last time the sheriffs picked him up, navigation center said, we're just going to have to let you go in the morning, which was 6 hours away, because we barely have space. We have a seat here in the corner. And
Nobody should be at the
took him to his
stabilization
sister's
center.
house. Took him to his sister's house. When they took him to the hospital, they're like, we're just going to release you. It's not in their mind bad enough. And I'm like,
But-
it's only a matter of time before he drives wrong way down the highway, because
But-
that's the type of mindset he is.
Kat, shouldn't he be going to the stabilization center, not the navigation center?
He's been to all of them.
Okay.
And it's just really hard. And what happens, it's just absurd. I mean, because he makes a certain amount of money as a veteran, a lot of places are like, well, you need to go, get your own health service and they'll pay for it. But, he doesn't have the mental acuity to do all these things. I've set him up with Kobo. I've talked to all sorts of people to get him advocacy. It's amazing how awkward and clunky the system has been for him. So we have daily phone calls, and I've often drive him around with me during the day to keep him happy.
So he can't get into, we're adding 7 more cabins to the Veterans Village. He does not qualify for that.
Does not.
He's not,
If you
is he
wanna-
homeless currently?
He
Let's stick to
is.
the agenda just because we have limited time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
okay,
go
all right.
ahead. But
We have
yeah,
13
exactly.
minutes.
We can talk about it later, but I'm saying that this is the problem. We don't have long-term places for people with actual mental health, and he's got mental health issues, and that's what we need. So getting back to the agenda, back what we need, that person at the table and how we're missing their gaps as well would be awesome, because it's long-term. It's not in and out. It's not daytime appointments and go home.
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's a vital part of what we're doing. I think we do need someone from behavioral health.
Yeah, I mean, I think understanding, I think maybe for this emergency meeting, roundtable, it might be helpful to understand the constraints of our behavioral health staff. So maybe we take it from that angle of what they're able
Yes.
to do in this situation. I think might be.
We should add Holly Harris then to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might
So
make
Holly
sense.
should be added. That would be good to have her part.
Because if we're talking about maybe putting in some emergency supports, I think having that viewpoint would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
Okay,
because where do they go? Because you're going to find out that there's
Yeah.
more people living unhoused in those particular areas. That the reason why they're not in the cities is they can't deal
Mhm,
with all the stuff in the cities, and there's reasons
Mhm.
why.
mhm. And, I do know that is, if we're talking about an appeal to the governor, that is something that the governor has at least talked about, and has put some money towards wanting to, improve services and delivery of services. So that might be another angle for us when we do make our appeal or in the future.
I think it's part of the organic step. First, we get them into a safer, cleaner managed camp,
Yeah.
and then we help them to the next step.
Exactly.
But we can't do one before the other, because that's threatening.
And there are still empty beds in Bethlehem Inns in both locations at this. That was my conversation with Gwen a couple days ago. They don't do assessment intakes on Wednesdays, I believe, but yeah, there are beds there if that's a possibility for anyone that you run into.
Beds are more high barrier at Bethlehem Inn.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it can be.
that's probably, I mean, I appreciate that they have beds and we could utilize them, but we're going to have to find people that aren't currently using or having alcohol or other things that keep them from that facility.
So besides, we thought, Holly, we have some forest service people to add, ODOT. Is there anyone else that we would want to add to the list in terms of, and keeping in mind that this is a really specific thing we're talking about, unsheltered homelessness? Is there anyone else we'd like to have at the table? Do we want Parks and Rec there? I don't know about that.
I don't think we have a lot of issues with Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
do we?
No,
I mean, Time, Place, and Manner pretty much took care of that in Redmond.
they
Uh,
yeah.
Ben Parks and Recs moves people out almost
they do.
immediately is what I've heard. They're really
Yeah.
good at it.
Yeah, I mean, they close their
Yes.
parks at night and nobody can be there.
Yeah,
Correct.
they have private
Yeah.
security.
Okay.
So maybe.
What about
yeah, that
HLC
makes
folks?
sense.
I'm sorry.
Is there any interest in having a representative from the HLC join the conversation?
Yeah.
I think that would be important. Yes. Otherwise, we're
great.
saying they're not important.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think, it's silly of us to say we think we should do X, Y, and Z, and then the HLC says there's no way a service provider could do that, or a city could do,
Well, exactly. We need the people at the table who actually can do the things we're thinking about or asking about, or maybe they've already done them and they can tell us, well, that's not going to work and here's why.
Mhm.
And I think it would show good faith to the governor as well, to show that the county and the COCs are working together.
Yes. So Chris, going
Okay.
back to that heat map, do you think it's possible to do something kind of like that? Or
I think it's possible. I wanted to go back a little bit to, like you had we'd mentioned earlier in the call, this this kind of acknowledgement that like people coming in and out of camps and having like increased attention there really makes folks that are living out in the woods like a little resistant to providers, fearful, things like that. And so, and I would just, and I don't know exactly how providers would take that request, but I would expect a little bit of pushback around just like really drawing attention to where folks are living out in the woods.
Oh, gotcha.
And feeling like if this was like a public map that someone could just grab it and be like, I'm going to go solve this problem on my own or whatever. So I think that I think that I can work with folks to try to get something that maybe stays internal, but I think that there would be pushback around publishing a document of like, this is where you can go to be homeless, or this is where all the homeless people in Deschutes County live.
I could see that, but I think for our benefit, if it could stay internal, I know Patty's already getting an incident fire map.
Yeah.
Maybe we start with looking at where the human caused incidents are in our outlying areas. Let's just do that. Let's start with this from a public health and safety, because anybody could get that information. If she can get it, we can get it.
Yeah.
So maybe we start with that as our initial footprint without labeling it as anything else.
I definitely didn't want this to come off as like me saying, no, I won't do it. I
I think that's a brilliant reason not to make that public. But if we could look at the other, it might be a good plan.
Yeah. Also, once you do a map that shows where there have been fire starts, and that becomes public, it will generate some serious concern in the community. And maybe we want that. I don't know, that awareness, but it will.
That's probably a good idea. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there is this group of people who are still very interested in just pushing until they're just pushed to where we don't see them anymore, and then they're not a problem. And I think what we're not realizing is, you can hide it, but it's going to come back and bite you with the incidence of high fire risk and things that we have. So maybe good not say it that way for public venue. But I think that having that understanding that, we need to have some management, some assistance, some way to help these people help themselves and keep all of us safe would be the good way.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's important for us to, if we're going to talk about what a significant problem this is, and that it is an emergency. I mean, I agree with you. We don't want to publish, but at the same time, I think it would be helpful from a perspective, like, okay, we've got, generally speaking, pit count, we've got X many unsheltered, roughly 300 of them are in Juniper Ridge and 200 are like just some kind of idea of like, some
way to quantify the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need
gonna just take our word for, hey, we got a lot of homeless.
Maybe we don't need an exact address.
I mean, we're gonna have to.
We don't need an exact address.
Right. Maybe we just need a county map that just shows hotspots.
Yeah. Something general, I think, would just be really helpful for framing that discussion. That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, because the county is working on at least 2 managed camp locations that we will have to have available before our camping ban goes into effect, which will be approximately November 9th. So yeah, we are working on a couple of spots which will be great, because then this is where you can go, and they're going to be managed, and we are going to have services. So it's going to
Yes.
be,
Thank you, Patty, for that. I was very, very heartened to see that news yesterday. So that's great. That's really wonderful.
yes. Well, wasn't it though? It's about time. Yes.
So, and then Mickey just said someone from the Health Council. What do you all think about that?
So I now we're getting really big, and I don't know if we're gonna have time to hear everybody. So it sounds like we need multiple meetings, which is our job.
Yeah.
Do we want to frame this as the emergency and incident management meeting and stick with all those players, and then come back in a second conversation after we have HLC and maybe somebody who talks about, the funding for behavioral health, maybe lightly, but then come back and have a huge conversation with all those players about what it takes for those next steps.
For this to actually happen.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think we need to keep this really tight of like, we're all coming together as government bodies, entities
but I don't want to lose sight of what Mickey just put up there, because I think that's an awesome next step.
Yep.
So
I agree. Maybe a two-parter.
Keep it for next.
Yep.
Thank you, Mickey.
Yep. Does that sound good? In terms of the list, and are we feeling?
Well, I think it's a great starting point. We can always add or subtract from the list.
But
oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Hearing two people at once.
I said it was a great.
Did you not have the list?
What's the question? Who does not have the list?
Is it Dan?
What I said is, I think the amount of people and designees that we have on the list at this time is a great starting point, and we could add or subtract from the list as we need it. There's no need to overbuild this to write off.
Yeah. Oops, I think he just muted himself, but.
So just for clarity's sake, so for the first meeting, we're envisioning having a representative from each city and probably staff as well, the county as well. And then Forest Service, BLM, and Holly Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And the sheriffs.
And ODOT.
Sheriff and ODOT. And did that also include the representative Patty mentions that's the new state?
The Forest Service person.
It's the Forest Service, yeah.
Okay.
They would be there because this is a quote from someone at China Hat. He can't believe the Forest Service, his bosses, are taking a hands-off approach. So we've got to bring the people from Portland here for this meeting. Somebody has got to show up. It's they've got to change there. And, really we need someone from Washington, D.C., but that'll be a later point. It sounds like a great plan. I've got to go into combined right now, but I will wait to watch the rest of this. And definitely we need some people from the sheriff's office being part of this. Yeah. So we're just, it's good. All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye, Patty. So then in terms of scheduling, we were talking about maybe starting with those invited guests first.
Yeah. And stick to the, I think the emergency factor and the fire and health safety at that level.
Great.
And then I think the deeper dive would be, as McKee had suggested, the parties from the Health Council for funding and connections, because that's a whole different can of worms when we're looking at the funding and getting the services done. So I would want that to have its own sincere amount of attention.
Yep.
Is there a desire to have this meeting before the next CHRO board meeting, or what's the preferred timeline? Okay.
Sooner rather than later in my mind.
Yeah, I think the more we can do, and we can show action items at the next meeting, the better. And as Megan said, it's an emergency. We should treat it like that. So if we have to try to meet every week to every other week to accommodate this meeting, then that's what we do.
One comment for me is I think that the focus is what can we do right now, and so anything that takes somebody else to do something, it should not be the focus.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point.
People at the table do without getting approval from somebody else, because otherwise we're not going to be able to accomplish it in the first couple
You're right.
months.
You're right.
Good
You're right.
job.
This is about
point.
short term, the short term. Yep. Yep. I agree.
All right, what we could do is we could pull some of these other eight, well, we can first check with this board, the Crow board, on availability, get a couple of dates and times, and then we'll pull the other folks. And we probably can't, some of them may have to send representatives, because if we wait until we can get everybody that we exactly want, it'll be months out, but we will do what we can.
No, and we don't want that. We need somebody who can have an immediate seat at the table. And like I said, and we'll communicate. That person has to have the authority to help with short-term decisions and communicate.
Yep.
So
Great. Thank you, everybody.
that was
All right.
awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Megan, I will shoot you